Hi, my name is Lee, and today I'm here to tell you about The Golden Dream of Carlo Chuchio by Lloyd Alexander. The Golden Dream of Carlo Chuchio by Lloyd Alexander is about Carlo Chuchio. He is a young man who is an accountant apprentice, but he's not really good at it, and he makes a lot of mistakes. At one point, he gets fired from this job. And luckily, at this point, he had found a map to the Golden Road that goes across the land. And he decides that he's going to follow it to the treasure that it's supposed to be at the end. And it's a myth, and everyone knows it's basically foolish to do. But Carlo is not the brightest crayon in the box, so he decides to do it anyway. And on the way, he meets up with a bunch of different people. He meets up with Bakshish, who you could talk about on the back cover, but also Shira, and a bunch of other people, from good guys to bad guys, and so on and so forth. Along the lines of like the Odyssey, or the Princetta, which I read, or The Voyages of the Dawn Treader by C.S. Lewis, it is a long quest that isn't so much about the quest as the journey. I love those kind of stories. Have I told you how Voyager is my favorite of the Star Trek shows? So, The Golden Dream is Lloyd Alexander's last book he wrote. He wrote it in 2007, and I've been putting it off since then. And I really did enjoy it. I really liked it, but there was a bittersweetness to reading this for me of, it's the last book Lloyd Alexander wrote. As I was reading it, someone told me that it's kind of like Lloyd Alexander knew it was going to be his last book, and so he goes through a lot of the characters he's already written, but from a different perspective. It's a bit darker too. It feels a little bit like Lloyd Alexander really wanted to get his message across. That message being that violence isn't the answer, and that perhaps your quest isn't about what you think it's about, and about growing up in a way that other books don't talk about, especially for middle grade. It's Carlos throughout this story becomes more and more disenchanted with the idea of becoming rich, which is his goal, and more wanting to instead just settle down and be with his love interest. This book does have some insta-love in it. I know a lot of people hate that, but I always forgive it because it's Lloyd Alexander and he had that in his own personal life. It feels a little bit darker than his other books. Especially with Shira, who's practically Inej from Six of Crows. She is. I will stand by that statement. I feel a lot of things about this book, and I didn't actually cry during it. I have cried during reading some of Lloyd Alexander's books, The Galgan and the Boy specifically, but also others. I'm going to be nitpicky quick, but I felt like I wanted an answer to the bookseller at the beginning. Throughout this story, Carlo keeps coming across these people who are vaguely magical, so like the bookseller at the beginning, but also a few other characters later on. And I really wanted an answer to who they were. Like, why were they always coming in across Carlo? Why was this happening the way it was happening? And I didn't really get an answer. This happens in the Princetta too, so I keep picking them. I wanted an answer, but I also wonder if maybe that wasn't the point. Like, there wasn't supposed to be an answer for this. There's not supposed to be a conspiracy to get him to the ending. It's just how he got there. Is this my favorite Lloyd Alexander book? Nah. But this was good. I recommend Lloyd Alexander all of the time. So if you haven't read him yet, this one's good. I remember saying in my TBR jar that it's very Arabian Nights-esque, and it is, but it's also vaguely Mexican. So it's a very strange mixture of Mexican culture and then also Arabic culture, and different characters are from each. So it's interesting with that too. It's good. It's good. let's do our next TBR jar. That almost hit me in the face. That was terrifying. Alright, I'm not really scared this time. The last few have been really good. But I don't want a fantasy book. You'll see it in the next future, or have seen it, that I've been reading a lot of fantasy lately. So I don't really want to read more fantasy. I'm kind of reading a Rex Stout right now, on and off. It's not been great. You'll find out. I'll talk about it maybe in the future. It's gonna have to be this one. This is the one I picked. Turn back now. But it'd be nice to maybe some YA. I don't think I've picked out any YA other than Golden Dream, which is kind of middle grade, less YA. I don't own this book. How did this show up? The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale. And it's fantasy. It's a fairy tale retelling of the Goose Girl fairy tale. The Goose Girl by Shannon Hale is a book I don't own. I thought I was going to buy it at some point, but then I didn't. But I did end up throwing it into my TBR jar, and I forgot it was in here. I do really like Shannon Hale. I've read her Austenland by her. I also read the Princess Academy books, and there's been a couple other things I think I've read by her. But I think the Goose Girl is supposed to start a series called Enna. I think there's a sequel like it's River Secrets and Enna Burning. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But that's part of why this book is in here. I probably will have to put this on hold at the library or check my library and see if it is in. And if it is, I'll probably run over in the next couple days and grab it. Because this is fun. I love fairy tale retellings. I talk about fairy tale retellings. I retell fairy tales for funsies. And the Goose Girl's a really fun fairy tale because it's like, do you guys know what the fairy tale is? Because I do. Let me tell you a bit quick. It's about a princess who goes into the city with her maid, and her maid is like, hey, I think something might be going on in the city, so I'm going to pretend to be you, and you can pretend to be me, and just to make sure we're all safe. But then the maid usurps her identity and gets married to the king, and leaves this princess kind of on the wayside. And also then the maid kills her horse, Falada, and puts the head up at the gate, and Falada every day basically kind of mocks the princess and is like, oh, if only your mother could see you now, and it happens a lot. So finally the princess does some stuff where she kind of does some Cinderella move where she's like, shows up at the palace and is like, I'm a princess, and the king's like, what, she's a princess? And then the whole deception gets unearthed, and the maid gets beheaded or something, and the princess lives happily ever after. That was a really short fairy tale retelling of the Goose Girl by me. You didn't know it was going to happen today. I didn't know it was going to happen today. But that's what that kind of is about, and so it might be really interesting. I'm going to geek out a bit. If I don't know this, we'll see. If Hale mixes the Goose Girl fairy tale with, like, the Children of Lear, which is the Irish one about the young woman whose siblings turn into geese, and then she has to remain silent or something for, like, 7 years. And if she can, she will break their curse. But then a prince shows up and is like, who are you? And she's like, I really can't answer anything you say right now. And he's like, ooh, okay. Bad things happen. Which is, again, similar to Swan Lake. But that doesn't have, like, the whole silence aspect. The whole silent thing of, like, I have to be silent to break a curse or something is, like, most probably famous in Little Mermaid, but it's also in Dorani, which is very similar to the 12 Dancing Princesses. I'm just going in loops and circles now. But I always love it when fairy tale retelling is like mix a couple fairy tales together, and with the Goose Girl and the Children of Lear, I think would really work really well for that. So I kind of hope she does that. She probably won't, but I hope she does. So I'm excited about this. We'll see how it goes. This has been another TBR Jar video by me. Check in next time. I will have read The Goose Girl. Have you read The Golden Dream of Carlo Chuchio? Is it your favorite Lloyd Alexander? What is your favorite Lloyd Alexander book? I have to know. Otherwise, I hope you're having a lovely afternoon and are reading good books. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you're so inclined. And I will see you in the future when I talk about the Goose Girl. Bye.